What's up guys, my name is Tom, welcome back to another video, and today here for another episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode. Today is time for round 3 in season 3 episode 41, and if you haven't watched the previous one at the Chinese Grand Prix, it was a race we can say full of highs and lows for Tom Motorsport, and we got to get our first pole position for the team, but it wasn't done by me, it was done by George Russell. So hopefully we can beat our teammate for the first time. During Saturday he's been looking outstanding during the qualifying sessions, but now you're going to see that we have a brand new upgrade, and maybe the prettiest one in this career mode series. Now we have a motion simulator where you can feel all the G-forces and all that stuff to that wide screen, and you can see that the monocoque with our livery looks pretty sexy indeed. But anyway, it's time for the Dutch Grand Prix. We have some upgrades ready for this race, but before jumping into the garage, I'm going to buy a major one, and hopefully it's going to be ready for the Monaco Grand Prix. I know that in terms of aerodynamics we are way higher than Mercedes. I think we should be investing a little bit more on the engine, but considering that this upgrade is going to come hopefully to the Monaco Grand Prix where engine power doesn't mean that much, I think that major upgrade is really going to come in handy without a doubt. But before the Monaco Grand Prix, remember that we're going to have Spanish Grand Prix before jumping into the streets of the Principality. But in terms of the performance chart, we are reducing the gap to Mercedes, so we are getting in there, and hopefully sooner rather than later we're going to be better theoretically than Mercedes, and we are getting away of the likes of the Red Bulls, the Ferraris and the McLarens. The Aston Martins not looking pretty good during this season, and they are right in the middle of the performance chart. But remember that so far they didn't score a single point, which is pretty shocking, but who knows, maybe it can be a good weekend for them, because this is the Dutch Grand Prix. Remember that in last season Sergio Perez got Aston Martin's first win, as well his first win in the My Team universe. Here are the results of practice 1, and George Russell gone fastest, followed by Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen. We are just down in P10, but remember that practice programs don't tell the whole story. But actually I've been struggling a little bit to accomplish these practice programs, I'm not gonna lie. As you can see, we are 5/10 down on the objective when it comes to the qualifying sim program. And yeah, we failed the challenge. It's been a while since I failed a practice program in this My Team series, but anyway, it was enough to put us in full fastest, 4/10 away of George Russell. So he's looking pretty pacey, and it seems that he's going to continue to be in this weekend. But now it's time for qualifying. You can see that we're going to have some rain, and it's going to stick with us for the entire session. So this is going to be a little tricky. Hopefully the wet conditions can make things a little bit easy for us, because if the pace on practice carries on onto the race, we're going to be in big trouble. But now we are here in these very tricky intermediate conditions. Hopefully this can shake up a little bit the field, or maybe the Mercedes, who knows, they can be down to order, or maybe we are going to be down to order, we don't know, is what we're going to find out throughout this short qualifying session. As we're going into turn 1, taking a very careful line, make sure to be really careful with the brakes and the throttle, basically being careful with everything. Those curbs are absolute soap when we have these wet conditions, and taking a wide line through the hairpin. I always like to take a very wide line through that cone in order to get that beautiful slingshot as we go through the final cone. It's a little bit tricky to go flat, and I was trying to do that, and I lost a bit the back end. I think the rain is going to ease down as the session goes by, and we said for the time being the fastest time with 1:18.5. And as we skip a little bit forward onto the session, this is my second lap in the same set of tires, and we are down into P4, across the line, and we improve our time, and we are second fastest with Valtteri Bottas in provisional pole position with George in P4. And now this is with the second set of intermediates, so we have available for this qualifying session 3 sets of intermediates. I'm going to use all of them because the rain is not going to fear in the race. Hopefully the F1 gods are not going to screw me with the weather during the race. But anyway, going 3/10 up, so you can see clearly the track evolution, but these corners in the second sector is where I've been struggling the most over the course of this weekend. So you're going to notice maybe in the race that in terms of traction, the AI is an absolute god at the exit of those corners. But one of the Red Bulls is getting in the way, and we gone purple in the first sector, almost gaining half a second on our previous best. Now through the penultimate corner, maybe that Red Bull is interfering a little bit with our lap thanks to the dirt here. Now through the final corner, is not still at the moment optimal to go flat out, but across the line, 5/10 of improvement, and it's only enough to put us 4 faster. With Sebastian Vettel for the time being, he's in a very lofty P5. It was P3 when we across the line, and now we are getting ready for our final run. And you can see that I'm kind of blocking the Alfa Romeo Veloce of Luca Chiotto, because in front of us was one of the Williams PlayStation, and I want to get a little gap. And you can see in the minimap one of the Monster Mercedes were catching up, so I was trying maybe the Alfa Romeo holding up a little bit the Mercedes and screw a little bit the lap thanks to the DTM. You can see in the minimap one of them is getting held up by the Alfa Romeo, so definitely my strategy has worked. I think I'm not doing anything illegal, it's just a question of strategy. But anyway, where is this going to put us at the start of the race, improving by 0.2 of a second. Max Verstappen at the moment in provisional pole position, but for us what this is going to mean is going to be P3, so I wonder who's the pole sitter and who's going to be in second place. It is George Russell once again taking pole position, second in his career and the second one in a row. Remember that his first one was in the last episode of the Chinese Grand Prix, and yeah, he's looking pretty pacey during this weekend. Bottas was in provisional pole position when we started our lap, but it seems that his lap might be deleted, because when he started our final lap it was outside of the top 5, but at least he managed to get P5. And shock for Lewis Hamilton, the championship leader, is going to start in 7th place. So this can be a great race for us, for Town Motorsport, when it comes not just to the Drivers' Championship, but as well for the Constructors. So I'm really looking forward to see what we can do in this race. The Porsches are way down the order as well, so this is going to help us out a lot in the standings. So this is going to be a very important race for us. So without further ado, let's go down to the track for the Dutch Grand Prix.
Welcome along then to the North Sea coast and Zandvoort, 25 miles away from Amsterdam, and the host for today's Dutch Grand Prix. It's a race the great Jim Clark won on 4 occasions, leading for an astonishing total of 370 laps. Zandvoort circuit, 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with plenty of steep camber and elevation changes to keep our drivers on their toes throughout a 2.6 mile lap. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. George Russell will begin today's event from pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Thomas, Leclerc, Valtteri Bottas and Albon, Hamilton, Vettel, Sainz and Daniel Ricciardo, Perez, Stroll, Kevin Magnussen and Ocon, Matsushita, Kvyat, Pierre Gasly and Antonio Giovinazzi, Latifi, Norris, Giotto and Nick de Vries. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
And here we are on the track, guys, starting in P3, our best qualifying position so far in this season. Our best one so far in this My Team career mode in general was P2 at a Mexican Grand Prix, remember? But anyway, strategy-wise, we're going to start on the softs and then switch to the hards. No tire rules because it was a wet qualifying. And let's take a look at the strategies from everyone. You can see Lewis Hamilton is saying that already made a one stop, but I think that's a game glitch. Yes, definitely it is a game glitch. And it seems that most of the field is going to start on the softer comparative tires. The guys, especially on the back marks, and with the exception of Carlos Sainz, of the top 10 is going to start in the medium comparative tire. But it's time for the Dutch Grand Prix. What we can do, this can be a great race for us. 5 red lights and it slides out and away we go. Great start against Max Verstappen, getting a little bit closer to George Russell, but our second phase wasn't that good, and we are side by side with Max Verstappen, and George Russell might get away in these early stages of the race because we're going at it with the young hero. And it's been a great qualifying session for Max Verstappen, but at the moment finds himself on the final step of the podium because we are up into second place. It is for the first time, ladies and gentlemen. That is a 1-2 for Town Motorsport. Not really 1-2 because at the moment we didn't complete the lap, but it is George Russell followed by myself, Verstappen, Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas finishing the top 10. Hamilton is starting as well in the medium, so we'll see if he lost some positions at the start. We massively lock up the front right tire, and you can see that this section of track is where we're going to struggle the most, and expect maybe to be under threat of this DRS zone in case Verstappen has the DRS, because now it's vital, as you can see we're following Verstappen's POV, like I was saying, is vital to break the DRS window of Verstappen, because I want this to be a race between me and Russell and get the best points as we can. The best that we can get is 43, and that's what I'm aiming at the moment in this Grand Prix. P1, P2 plus the extra point for fastest lap, that's the objective of this race if we want to challenge Mercedes, which they are way down the order. So this is going to be a golden opportunity in this race. We must not make mistakes, we must not bottle the strategy, we have to be perfect. And you can see that Charles Leclerc in P4, so it's been a great weekend so far for Ferrari. So it seems that they are bouncing back after the disaster of the season they had, and you can see Carlos Sainz and the Aston Martins, definitely it is improvement when it comes to track position comparing with the previous two races. As George Russell sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, you can see that we got purple on the first and the third sector, but it's not enough to set the fastest lap, so just see how much time we lose on the second sector. I've been struggling for the entirety of the weekend, and actually I struggle in general in this game. So you can see that Russell is pulling away now, maybe even more, because we made a mistake at the exit of the chicane, and this is going to allow Verstappen to catch us. He's already 6 tenths away of us, so our efforts to break the DRS window of the Dutchman have been vanished away thanks to a stupid mistake by myself. I was pushing so hard to try to catch Russell, but it seems that for the time being in this first stint he has the upper hand in these early stages of the Dutch Grand Prix. But let's take a look at the start from Max Verstappen. You can see that his reaction was terrible, and that allowed us to already jump into P2, but I had a little bit of wheel spin, and that kind of ruined the start. Maybe challenge George Russell, and we had to go side by side and lose time against our teammate. As we skip a little bit forward onto lap 5, you can see stepping at the curbs, using all the track that is available. You can see Russell is already getting away more than 3 seconds ahead of us, as I will go a little bit wide, and down inside goes Max Verstappen. A terrible mistake from us. As we go side by side, Verstappen is going to have the advantage thanks to the DRS, and even we made a little bit of contact as we lock up into the chicane, so contact with the home hero, but thankfully no throttling damage as he tried to go down inside once again. But that wasn't the smartest thing to do, because now it seems to be a little bit under threat, not just of Leclerc, but maybe of Valtteri Bottas, and actually maybe I should be under threat of Verstappen as well. But we're going to watch a replay to see what happened, and I think Verstappen ran out a little bit of road, and instinctively it turned a little bit into the right, so maybe a little bit of a racing incident. But this dive down inside at the exit of the chicane was definitely Verstappen's fault. It wasn't the smartest thing to do. He tried to do something at the final corner at the Bahrain Grand Prix. You can, as we're watching his POV, he tried to do something at the end of the penultimate lap at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and it didn't work out that well for him. Like it was this case, he ended up to lose the position to George Russell on the final lap. It's bad news if you're a fan of Sebastian Vettel, myself as well, because he is out of the Dutch Grand Prix, so that is really unfortunate. It was being a great weekend for the German, but unfortunately the Dutch Grand Prix comes to an early end for the Ferrari. So one Ferrari down, now is Charles Leclerc carrying the flag, and Verstappen I think made a mistake, and Charles Leclerc round the inside goes off the Red Bull. Verstappen cracked under pressure. You can see that we pulled away massively as they're going side by side through the banking. Verstappen for the time being is ahead, but look at Valtteri Bottas go! Look at that Mercedes power, 3 abreast as they go into turn 1, and round the outside goes the Finn on the Dutchman. Leclerc lost that battle, but he is with a very privileged view at the moment, and look at Albon and Hamilton catching up this train, but Bottas makes up 2 places thanks to a mistake of Max Verstappen, which loses at the end of the day only 1. But we're going to watch the replay. It was still in the DRS range, but that snap of oversteer like I had some laps ago triggered all this. So we're going to watch Bottas' own wall to see how he managed to pull that, but we're going to see the Mercedes power showing his worth at the start-finish straight. First Leclerc, and then Verstappen, and really brave on the brake. So definitely Bottas wants to get closer to Hamilton, because remember that Hamilton so far has won all races, and he's already down a little bit in the championship standings, and Bottas really wants to revalidate his title. So this race can be really important, not just for us, but for the quest of Valtteri Bottas to revalidate his title, and Hamilton is a little bit down the order. So it's been a little bit of a nightmare Dutch Grand Prix, I'm not gonna lie, but now I'm going to take a very risky decision as we skip all the way forward onto lap 11, and I'm going to pit some laps earlier because first I'm not catching Russell, and I noticed that Bottas is starting to catch me, so I'm going to try to stretch a little bit the gap to Mercedes and hopefully get closer to our teammate, because I really need to win this race because we are way down in the championship. First race at Bahrain wasn't that good. The Chinese Grand Prix was a disaster that we had with Daniel Ricciardo, and we scored 0 points, so we need to get as many points as we can because this is just a 16-round championship. We have less opportunities than a normal championship, but first we need to manage this traffic, starting with the Aston Martin of Sergio Perez. Slipstream is going to be a little bit hard because that Aston Martin is pretty slippery on the straight line thanks to the Mercedes power, but we have the tires, we have the downforce, and down inside we went off the Mexican, which he got his first win in the My Team series in the previous season at this track. And now next victim is teammate Lance Stroll, really slow through the final corner, and it's going to be a drag race through the start finish straight, and we don't need to dive one down inside, so it's really important that we manage this traffic as quickly as we can. And I can tell you that we've been struggling a little bit in the second sector because there's a lot of corners and we struggle a little bit with the tier. Down inside we go now off with Carlos Sainz, starting on the mediums, and definitely is going longer in this race, and we are up into 7th place, just 6 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton as Daniel Ricciardo pulls into the pits and is going to fit the harder comparative tires. So maybe I'm expecting some guys on the softs, maybe my teammate, who knows, and maybe the guys on the softs are going to try to stretch as best as they can, and maybe, who knows, fit the medium comparative tires as Hamilton is getting very nice upstream of Alexander Albon. Those softs are going to start to fade away as the laps go by, and he's going to have the advantage on those medium comparative tires. And Russell pulls into the pits, and confirmation is going to fit the mediums, and this is the confirmation as well that these tire wear upgrades are coming into play, because if this was the first season they would fit the hard tires without a doubt. And unfortunately Russell is going to remain in the lead, 3.5 seconds. So the undercut kind of worked, but not the way that I intended. But let's be honest, the gap between me and Russell when we pulled into the pits was quite large, so there was no way, and it would be almost impossible to overtake our teammate. But anyway, Bottas, Leclerc and Verstappen are pulling into the pits, and actually we jumped those guys massively, so this is great news. So we are comfortably virtually in P1 and P2, so it's definitely for the moment a very comfortable 1-2 for Tom Motorsport at the moment, who leads in Lewis Hamilton, which is going longer because he started on the medium comparative tires, as we are watching some of the back markers and one of the Alfa Romeo Veloces and the Haas of Lando Norris fitting the mediums as well, so they are in the same strategy. So you can see that some guys are fitting the hards, some guys are fitting the mediums, and I was kind of forced to fit the hards because I took the decision to pit a lap early. So now I'm kind of worried. I think Russell is going to get away with this one as Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so maybe sooner rather than later we're going to be under pressure, maybe from even more from Valtteri Bottas, which has to overtake Verstappen once again, so he was jumped in the pit lane by the Red Bull. So maybe we can have a chance to stretch the gap over P3, because the Red Bull is not that much of a brilliant car as the Mercedes is. Talking about Mercedes, you can see Hamilton is going to be an absolute rocket ship in these later stages of the race because he's fitting the soft comparative tires, so watch out for Hamilton. Probably is going to take the fastest lap of the Grand Prix because he's driving a Mercedes plus the soft comparative tires, and he jumps Alexander Albon. This is great for the Brit because he's one less hurdle to manage, and now ahead of him is Charles Leclerc with some gap, but sooner rather than later he's going to catch that Ferrari as we set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on the harder comparative tires. So definitely I'm driving for my life now because it's not going to be easy if we want to finish ahead of Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton without surprise. That's a new fastest lap, and let's be honest, it's going to be really hard to get a fast lap if you have a Mercedes on the softer comparative tires. But now this is round 2 in my quest to set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and round 1 because we have to deal for the first time in a while with some back markers because this circuit is quite short when it comes to lap times. So without a surprise we're going to start to lap these guys in a 50% race. Round the outside we go off one of the Williams. It's really important because we can't lose time with these guys. I'm not to focus on Russell anymore, I'm more focused in Valtteri Bottas, because you can see up there that he is up into the final step of the podium. That Mercedes is going to be mighty fast, and in track conditions we've been struggling during this weekend, plus we are on the harder comparative tires. So now I am driving for my life, and we set another fastest lap, so definitely I'm pushing a lot, and I don't know how am I managing to set fastest lap on the harder compound of tyre with some laps. The tyre wear is starting to kick in a little bit, but down the inside go Lewis Hamilton off Charles Leclerc. It took a little bit of a while to catch the Ferrari, and Leclerc holds the position. So it seems that the softs are starting to fade away a little bit for Hamilton, but this is side by side with Bottas. We already know that Bottas is ahead, but let's find out how he managed to get the position of Verstappen. So they are going side by side, and Bottas is going to get a better run on the Red Bull. So the chances of Bottas getting a podium at his home race are pretty much over, unless there is a problem for the top three. Hopefully it's going to be for Bottas, not for Tom Motorsport. But now this is Hamilton, this is take two, round two in this duel between Hamilton and Leclerc. Down the inside goes the Brit. Leclerc is going to try to hold around the inside like he did some laps before. Who's going to be the biggest winner? Leclerc is holding it pretty nicely. Brilliant stuff between these two, and Leclerc gets ahead, remains ahead of Hamilton, but Hamilton is going to have the straight line speed advantage, and they're still going side by side. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Hamilton taking, I want to believe, P5. Yes, it is confirmation, but what a beautiful scrap between Mercedes and Ferrari. It's been a while since we saw these two teams going at it, and one of the Haas's is blocking us. It's Lando Norris, our whole teammate, and I managed to giving a little bit of a squeeze in frustration to show my frustration to our old teammates. So maybe getting a little bit personal, you know, because we had to fire Lando at the end of the season, and look where he's Haas and look where is my team. But anyway, let's press on because Bottas is starting to get closer and closer, and we need to dispatch his back markers ASAP without losing any time. And you can see that Bottas is starting to get closer. This means that he's managing better the traffic than I am, and let's be honest, I'm not used to deal with back markers unless there is public lobbies. Let's be honest, those 5-lap races where we lap everyone because they are changing their front wings. But let's focus on our race. This is Pierre Gasly. After a dreadful qualifying, he's on the verge to score points and save in a way Porsche's race, because one of the Aston Martin lost massively the back end. This is the third time in a race that we see someone losing the back end, and actually fourth time because that was Lance Stroll up ahead. It was synchronized back end loss performed by Aston Martin, and now I can tell you that this is for the final points paying position. And actually Gasly doesn't need to go down the inside, because it seems that those Aston Martins are struggling a little bit on the straight line, and that Porsche actually is pretty pacey on the straights as we are finishing up an ultimate lap, and George Russell sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So we're getting really close to get 43 points in a race, but mostly important is going to be the first 1-2 for Tom Motorsport with George Russell and then myself. Wow, what an incredible race that was, a very, very sweaty one.
Yes, that's a podium. Excellent drive. The team have worked especially hard this weekend, and this is a fantastic reward.
A difficult race then on a circuit that demands complete concentration, but they've persevered to take the win here today. So Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection, a shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted after the excitement of that race, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to our drivers here. They've worked hard to make it up there, and it's great to see them make their way out onto the podium.
What a race it was, a historical day for Tom Motorsport, but unfortunately we couldn't take the fastest lap. It was Valtteri Bottas on the very, very last lap that managed to get that extra point. But boy, I'm really happy. A positive day, a 1 and 2 plus a 3-5 for Mercedes, so this is going to be really important on our quest in the constructor standing, as Sebastian Vettel being the only DNF, and Matsushita was lap as well, but only by, and then Gasly with a beautiful comeback drive in that Porsche. But this will mean that in the driver standings is still Lewis Hamilton 6 points ahead only of Valtteri Bottas, followed by George Russell 10 points behind the leader, and then myself 30. So we have some work to do after the terrible round that we had, but definitely this is the way to go. Hopefully in the Spanish Grand Prix we can get that first race win of the season, and the constructor standings is Monster Mercedes, and we managed to close the gap to the reigning world champions, 34 points behind the leaders. Then Red Bull, Porsche, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, and then Aston Martin, Haas, Alfa Romeo and Williams are still the teams yet to score points. So it's been a dreadful season for Aston Martin, probably the biggest shock of this season so far. But guys, that has been episode 41 of my F1 2020 My Team Crew Mode. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the to play team more Formula 1 content. Really motivates me to make more. Make sure to join the family. We're going to have an absolutely banger of a time. But that has been me for today. My name's Tom, and I'll see you guys for a brand new video next time at the Spanish Grand Prix. But for now, take care.